Lesson 3. Load handling. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to list the necessary requirements before picking up a load. List the correct steps and practices in picking up a load. Identify the correct height to travel with a load. State the correct method to negotiate grades or ramps with both a loaded and unloaded forklift. List the correct steps and practices in setting down a load. List the correct steps and procedures when working with stacks. Requirements before lifting loads. Once the controls of the lift truck you are going to operate become familiar, you must familiarize yourself with the correct way to engage, pick up, carry, deposit, and disengage loads. If the load is loose, unbalanced, or not secure, reposition the load to balance it. Move the items closer together to tighten up the load. Strap the items together. Here are some do's and don'ts when lifting loads. Before engaging any load, check the weight of the load to make sure it does not exceed the capacity of the lift truck. Inspect each load prior to moving it. If the pallet that the load sits on is damaged, transfer the load onto a pallet in good condition prior to moving the load. Do not move a load if you question the load's condition or weight. Do not move a load until it has been weighed and or secured. Picking up a load. Fork spacing. Check the fork spacing after stabilizing the load and prior to engaging it. The best fork spacing is at least 2/3 the length of the load, adjusted for even spacing between pallet stringers and maximum width. Square with the load. Before engaging the load, the truck needs to be squared with the load. Raise the forks so they are just clear of the pallet opening. Approach slowly until the load just touches the carriage. Be careful not to bump into the load being engaged. Fully engage. Make sure that the load does not exceed the height of the backrest. Raise the load 4 to 6 inches, enough to clear the surface it is resting on. Pay close attention to the overhead clearance, looking out for the overhead obstructions. Do not pick up a load unless it is fully engaged. Tilt the mast back a bit to cradle the load. Check the sides of the load. Check behind the truck. Sound the horn and carefully back the truck out. Rest extension. For extremely large loads, rest extensions are available to help stabilize them. The load should not exceed the height of the back rest extension. Traveling with a load. Keep the load under control and proceed to the destination to unload. Keep the load as low as possible. It will keep the truck stabilized and avoid overhead obstructions. It also provides the best viewing area as well, transporting loads. If the forward view is obstructed by the load, drive in reverse. However, be careful and do not make an on-the-go change of direction when carrying a load. Here are some best practices while traveling with a load. Always move at a safe rate that allows for controlled maneuvers. Acceleration, turns, deceleration, and stops should all be smooth and carefully executed. When approaching a corner, slow down, sound the horn, and stay near the inside corner. At corners, the correct way to turn is to start turning when the inside drive wheel reaches the corner. Always sound the horn or use a spotter when approaching a ramp entrance while carrying a load. Caution should be exercised whenever encountering corners, dangerous surfaces, or ramps. Avoid raising a load while traveling. Raising the height of the load can drastically change the truck's stability. Never allow pedestrians or other traffic to move under a raised load. Negotiating grades and ramps. The areas you will be operating your truck in, as well as the surfaces you operate on, may vary. Often, the surfaces will not be smooth or continuous. Reduce speed on slick or uneven surfaces and never run over loose objects or through holes. When working on an elevated surface such as a dock or pier, maintain a safe distance from the edge during all maneuvers. Downhill and uphill grades such as ramps require extra caution. If traveling empty regardless of direction, always drive with the truck's forks pointing down the grade. When moving a load, regardless of direction, always move with the forks pointing up the grade. Setting down loads. A load is deposited in the reverse order of picking it up. The inching pedal on some trucks allows the operator to creep the truck into position during extremely slow maneuvers. By using the inching pedal, the engine speed is increased, which creates an increase in lift speeds. Simple unloading consists of placing the load on the floor and disengaging it. Follow these steps to deposit the load. Move the load over the selected location. Tilt the mast to vertical and slowly lower the load to the floor. Check behind the truck, sound the horn, and carefully back away to disengage the truck's forks. Working with stacks, steps, and procedures. Keeping a few points in mind while stacking or lowering a load will help in safely depositing them. If the load needs to be stacked, follow these steps to safely stack them. Line the truck up squarely with the area where the load will be stacked. Tilt the mast forward so it is straight, upwards and downwards. If the truck is equipped with a side shift, it should be adjusted right or left to center the load. Raise the load evenly with the stacking level. Slowly creep forward to locate the load over the unloading point while maintaining the correct stacking alignment. When the load is in position, lower it slowly and squarely until the weight of the load is fully in contact with the stack below it. Check behind the truck, sound the horn, and slowly back away. When the forks are safely disengaged from the load, stop the truck and lower the forks 4 to 6 inches above the floor. While lowering a load, keep these things in mind. Avoid over-lowering the carriage to the point where there is slack in the chains. When the truck backs away from the load, the carriage will then drop, causing extreme stress on the lift chains. If the load needs to be adjusted, pick it back up and reposition it. Do not shove the load around with the truck forks.